Take the case of Mali, today under a fuel blockade mounted by local jihadi groups. Sure signs, say observers, of more problems further down the road.
While the world's eyes are glued to the chaos in Tanzania, something far more dangerous is unfolding quietly in Mali. A crisis that's not just about politics, but survival. Fuel shortages are crippling cities, stranding villages, and pushing ordinary Malians to the edge. And behind this chaos stands one of the most feared militant networks in West Africa, JNIM. They've launched a blockade so effective it's choking an entire nation. But this isn't just a random act of terror. There's a motive, one that exposes the deeper war being fought inside Mali. Tonight, we uncover the hidden story behind Mali's fuel blockade, who's really pulling the strings, what they want, and how the country's military leaders are fighting back to keep Mali from running out of power and hope. Since September 2025, Mali has been living through a nightmare, a crisis so deep it's threatening to crush both the economy and the government itself. It all started quietly in early September. An armed group with ties to Al-Qaeda, known as JNIM, launched a ruthless campaign. Their target wasn't soldiers or politicians, it was fuel. One by one, fuel tankers were ambushed on the highways, convoys were burned, drivers disappeared. Within weeks, the group had effectively choked Mali's lifeline. They sealed off key trade routes, especially the roads leading to Kayes and Nioro du Sahel, two critical gateways on the border with Senegal. From that moment, the country began to suffocate. And as the attacks continued, one thing became clear. JNIM wasn't just blocking fuel. They were sending a message to the government in Bamako. Mali runs when we allow it to run. By October, the effect was devastating. Gas stations in Bamako, a city of over 4 million people, ran dry. Motorbikes stopped. Buses vanished from the streets. And daily life, from hospitals to markets, began to unravel. By the end of October, the crisis had reached a breaking point. In Bamako, fuel stations turned into battlegrounds of frustration. Lines stretched for blocks, drivers sleeping in their cars, waiting for a few drops of hope. Tempers flared. Fights broke out. People were desperate. Reports soon confirmed the unthinkable. Fuel prices had skyrocketed by 500%, from $25 to over $130 per liter. Imagine that. For most Malians, it was no longer about choice. It was about survival. The government had to act. Schools and universities across the country were ordered to shut down for 2 weeks. A painful decision that symbolized just how paralyzed the nation had become. Education Minister Amadou C. Savan explained that the suspension, lasting until November 9th, was due to disruptions in fuel supplies affecting the movement of school staff. He promised the government was doing everything possible to restore supplies before classes resumed on November 10th. But few believed it. Meanwhile, the Interministerial Committee for Crisis and Disaster Management issued a grim new directive. Fuel restrictions would remain in place until further notice. Only emergency services, assistance vehicles, and public transport would have access to what little fuel remained. For millions of Malians, this wasn't just a crisis of energy, it was the slow collapse of daily life. But behind this blockade lies a dangerous game of retaliation. According to JNIM, their siege wasn't random, it was revenge. They claimed it was a response to the Malian government's decision to ban the sale of fuel outside official stations, especially in rural areas where people often buy and sell petrol in jerry cans. On the surface, it seemed like a simple regulation, but for the militants, it was a direct threat. You see, in these remote regions, JNIM doesn't just fight, they trade. Fuel is one of their lifelines. They sell it, profit from it, and use the money to fund their attacks. So when the Malian authorities moved to cut off those profits, the group struck back, hard. They blocked fuel routes, hijacked convoys, and destroyed tankers. Every explosion, every burned truck sent the same message. If we can't have fuel, neither can you. And now, the people of Mali are paying the price. In Bamako, fuel stations have shut their doors. The streets are eerily quiet. Cars sit abandoned. Many residents have no choice but to walk for miles, or stay home entirely. Analysts describe it as an economic stranglehold, a pressure campaign designed to suffocate Mali's military government by cutting off the country's most vital resource, fuel, the oxygen of its economy. According to Al Jazeera's Nicholas Hawk, JNIM's strategy seems to be working. Their blockade isn't just starving Mali of fuel, it's turning public anger against the very government trying to stop them. And for ordinary Malians, that anger is understandable. How long can people survive when the country itself has stopped moving? The fuel crisis has frozen daily life. Shops that rely on generators are silent, markets are half empty, and the transport network, the arteries that keep people and goods flowing, has all but collapsed. One motorcycle driver summed up the desperation in a single sentence: "I pushed my motorcycle 9 kilometers without fuel." That's not just a quote, it's a symbol of a nation running on fumes. The crisis has now drawn international concern. The U.S. Embassy in Bamako issued an urgent warning, advising American citizens to leave Mali immediately on commercial flights. Travel by road, they said, was too dangerous. The highways have become potential war zones, haunted by the threat of terrorist attacks. For those who stay, the embassy advised preparing contingency plans, including the possibility of sheltering in place for weeks, even months. Because the consequences of this fuel blockade go far beyond empty tanks. It's now disrupting electricity, cutting power to entire neighborhoods, and, according to U.S. officials, it could destabilize Mali's already fragile security situation in unpredictable ways. This is no longer just a fuel shortage, it's a siege, one that threatens to unravel the country from within. Before we look at how Mali's leaders are fighting back, we need to understand the enemy and their motives. Who are these men? What do they really want? To answer that, we have to go back to the beginning. Mali's nightmare didn't start in 2025. It began more than a decade earlier, in 2013, when separatist Tuareg rebels in the north rose up against the state. But what began as a local rebellion was soon hijacked by something far darker. A new force emerged from the desert, an alliance of Islamic militants calling themselves JNIM, or Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, a group linked directly to Al-Qaeda. Over the years, they've done something few terror groups managed to do. They've blended in. In remote villages where the government's presence is weak, JNIM has become part of the community itself. They've intermarried with locals. They've had children. They've recruited young boys, sometimes willingly, sometimes by fear. And in doing so, they've erased the line between civilian and militant. Today, that makes them almost impossible to fight. How do you destroy an enemy that hides within your own people? Their end goal is simple: to create chaos, weaken the state, and if possible, seize control of Mali itself. But unlike other extremist movements, JNIM has evolved. They don't rely solely on bombs or bullets. Their latest tactics, like the fuel blockade, reveal a more calculated plan. They aim to break Mali not through open war, but by turning its own citizens against the military government. And that's where their strategy gets dangerous. Because when Mali's generals seized power, they did so with the overwhelming support of the people. They promised strength, stability, independence. Now, JNIM is testing whether that trust can survive a crisis this deep. When Colonel Assimi Goïta and his men seized power, the people stood behind them. Even when he extended the transition period and dissolved parliament, the streets of Bamako stayed quiet. No mass protests, no uprisings, just faith. Faith that this government would finally bring stability to a nation that had seen too much chaos. And when political parties tried to stir unrest, the people shut them down. They made their choice clear. Mali stands with the military. That loyalty has been the cornerstone of Assimi's rule. It's what kept his government standing when the West imposed sanctions, when foreign troops withdrew, and when the pressure mounted from all sides. But loyalty is fragile. It can turn overnight. Imagine what happens if the people, exhausted, hungry, and stranded, begin to lose faith. If the same crowds that once cheered for the military start chanting against it, the result would be catastrophic. The government would try to tighten its grip. The people would push back. And in that chaos, the JNIM would return stronger than ever. Because for groups like them, chaos isn't a side effect, it's the goal. It's the perfect storm they've been waiting for. And right now, Mali is teetering dangerously close to that edge. This, right here, is the heart of JNIM's strategy. A tactic as old as modern power itself. They're not just fighting the Malian army, they're fighting for the people's minds. It's the same playbook the West has used time and time again across Africa. Destabilize a country from within, turn its people against their own leaders, and watch a government crumble without a single shot being fired. And that's exactly what's unfolding in Mali right now. The fuel blockade isn't just an attack on the economy, it's psychological warfare. A slow, calculated effort to make ordinary Malians lose faith in the very government they once defended. Because when people can't move, can't work, can't feed their families, frustration becomes rage, and rage turns loyal citizens into protesters. It's a dangerous formula, one that could unravel everything. Experts are sounding the alarm. Control Risks, a global intelligence and risk analysis firm, warns that the threat of Mali's military regime collapsing, either through a coup or a political breakdown, is extremely high in the coming weeks. Analyst Beverly Oken puts it bluntly: the blockade is designed to pressure citizens into distancing themselves from the government, to make them so miserable, so hopeless, that they start to blame the very leaders trying to protect them. And disturbingly, it's already starting to work. Across the border in Senegal, the tension is just as thick. At dusty roadside fuel depots, long lines of truck drivers wait under the burning sun, not for hours, but for months. Their tanks are empty, their patience gone. Most refuse to speak on camera. Some have been accused of paying Al-Qaeda fighters just to move their trucks across the border into Mali. No one wants to admit it, but everyone knows it happens. As one reporter put it, ahead for them lies a dangerous road, a journey straight through Al-Qaeda territory. Inside Bamako, the desperation is reaching breaking point. The city's once bustling fuel markets are silent. Gas cans that once lined the streets have vanished. Before, we could buy gas everywhere in cans, explains local reseller Bakari Koulibaly. But now, there's no more. We're forced to go to stations, and even then, we can't be sure there'll be any fuel. A few stations still have gas, but the lines stretch for hours, sometimes days. The city runs on hope and fumes. And in the middle of this slow-motion collapse, one question echoes through every street, every home, and every government office in Mali. Can the military government survive this? Can Colonel Assimi and his men overcome a crisis that threatens not just their rule, but the very stability of Mali itself? But just when it seemed Mali was about to collapse, something changed. Colonel Assimi Goïta was not about to watch his country burn. He moved swiftly and strategically. On October 27th, he turned to one of Mali's most powerful new allies, Russia. It was a gamble, but one that paid off. Within days, Moscow responded. Russia announced it would supply between 160,000 and 200,000 metric tons of petroleum and agricultural products to Mali. It was a lifeline, a bold move to break JNIM's stranglehold on the nation's fuel supply. The announcement came from Alexei Kulika, head of a Russian delegation visiting Bamako. He didn't stop there. He revealed plans for a Russia-backed gold refinery, a massive project that could anchor Mali's economy for years to come. And then, just 3 days later, the proof arrived. Several dozen fuel tankers rolled into Bamako, escorted by Russian military instructors and the Malian armed forces. Citizens lined the streets, watching the convoys roll in, a moment of relief, pride, and cautious hope. For the first time in weeks, Bamako saw the promise of movement, the sound of engines roaring back to life. This was more than just fuel. It was a statement, a symbol of sovereignty, resilience, and new alliances forming beyond the reach of Western influence. In a world watching Mali on the brink, Colonel Assimi's message was clear. Mali will not kneel, not to chaos, not to the West, not to fear. According to the Malian government's press service, the newly arrived fuel isn't just a symbol, it's a rescue plan in motion. The supplies will be used to refuel public transport and reach the regions hit hardest by the crisis. Every leader now carries the weight of survival. The Petroleum Customs Administration has been tasked with overseeing the process, preparing all the necessary documents, and ensuring the tankers are dispatched quickly to remote corners of the country. Then, on the night of October 30th, a convoy of several dozen fuel trucks thundered into Bamako, escorted by Fama soldiers, a sight that many Malians described as both surreal and heroic. According to the government statement, priority in distribution is being given to public transport to restore the movement of people across the capital and to emergency vehicles, ensuring humanitarian operations can continue. Special attention is also being given to the regions of Ségou, Mopti, and Koutiala, areas most affected by the blockade. And behind the scenes, officials are already executing a national plan, a coordinated system for fuel distribution across filling stations to eliminate shortages as quickly as possible. For the first time in weeks, Mali's streets are beginning to stir again, a cautious reminder that even in the face of sabotage and siege, a nation's will to survive can't easily be extinguished. What does this tell you? It's not only the government that is working to deal with the fuel crisis. Malian local officials, including community leaders, are doing all that they can to deal with the crisis. They are working hand in hand to solve the problem. So, while analysts may say that this fuel crisis is likely to push Mali over the edge, the truth is that the citizens of Mali do not want their country to go over the edge. Despite the frustrations and misery from the crisis, they still support their government. This is incredible. So yes, the blockade may still be in effect and the crisis has not abated. People are still struggling to move around and the price of fuel is still very high. But if you look at the bigger picture, you would see a country willing to persevere and work through the crisis. Both the government and citizens are willing to collaborate to deal with the issue. This is not just solidarity, it's patriotism and nationalism. So will Mali crack? In our opinion number. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to our channel.